What can we really expect from the Prime Minister today that's going to make any difference at all?
Well, the big announcement is on housing, so he's going to announce that they're going to extend the right to buy to housing association tenants. So at the moment we have just over 4 million people live in social housing, about 1.5 million of those are council housing, the rest are housing association. So this is a policy that's been trialled before. It was in the 2015 Tory manifesto, so it's not completely new, and that's why Labour are calling it a rehash. But in terms of, immediately alleviating people's problems, it's not going to, it's not going to pay anyone's bills next week, put it that way.
Exactly, and that's what people are asking for, isn't it? Some immediate help.
Yeah, you saw in the last spring statement there was a cut to fuel duty, for example, and that's already been wiped out by the rise in petrol prices. We're getting up to £100 to fill up a 55-litre family car now. So, that's hitting a lot of people. A lot of the media like to concentrate on trains and public transport and stuff, but the car is still the main way people get around, so it's absolutely punishing. The thing that's really concerning is that the RAC is saying it's actually going to get worse from here. So we're still not at the peak of where petrol prices could go.
Using the phrase that we need to unleash our fiscal firepower and get help to those who need it most. Really what we can expect from the Prime Minister, though, will be sort of a broad, sweeping picture today, because if it was going to be those sort of detailed announcements, surely they would be coming from the Chancellor. And I suppose what the Prime Minister is trying to do today, in many ways, is to redress a bit of the problems within his parliamentary party.
Yeah, it's about kind of setting the mood more than anything. You can see in the bits that they've put out already, it says in the coming weeks there will be announcements on childcare, energy, transport and other things. So we're not expecting a big detailed pitch today. The main detail will be that stuff on housing, which, as you say, is more of a long-term thing. It's not going to help in the immediate term. But
what we've heard is the possibility next year of stagflation, 0% growth, which is very bad news. So clearly, what we're needing now is some sort of clear, coherent plan for growth over the next few years.
Yeah, this is the big problem, and it's what you hear from business people all the time, is they just don't know which way the government's going on one thing or the other. For example, we have a big thing called a super deduction for companies that invest in their plant and machinery. You get lots of money off. Then in 2023, corporation tax goes up from 19 to 25%. If you're coming to invest in Britain, what does that tell you? There's no consistency of approach here, and it does feel as though it's a policy launch designed more to do with the Prime Minister's political position than a kind of coherent policy offer.
What about the forecast from the OECD yesterday? Forecasting, typically difficult, and you can't always put too much weight on it, but the OECD, widely respected, has come out and saying that we're going to be the worst G20 country in terms of growth, behind Russia, which of course is being heavily sanctioned at the moment. What on earth would be the explanation for that?
Yeah, you're right about forecasting. They say it's economic forecasting is there to make astrologers look good. But it's quite striking to see an international organisation kind of giving tips to your own government. And one of them was cut taxes, which would be news to the, music to the ears of a lot of the Tory backbenchers. I think a lot of the disgruntlement you see at Boris Johnson, it's not just about Partygate or cakes or anything like that. It's about the general fiscal direction of the government. Lots of tax rises, lots of public spending, not much. You see Tory MPs coming out this week saying, you're a Conservative, governor's one. And I think that's what a lot of those MPs want to see from him.
What about the Bank of England in all of this? They've got a huge amount of power, and it's pretty clear they don't really know what to do certainly about the inflation problem. We've seen interest rates go up, but all the experts seem to be saying, well, actually, this isn't going to make a huge difference.
I think the elephant in the room there is that the Bank of England itself is responsible for a large amount of inflation because of the amount of quantitative easing we've had all the way back since 2010. You can't just pump £1 trillion or so of money into an economy and not expect prices to do something. Having said that, some of these pressures are out of their hands. There's no escaping the fact that the war in Ukraine, the problems with Chinese ports and things, lots of problems with refineries, all these things that feed into the cost of petrol and diesel products. There's not much the bank can do about that. They can, play around with interest rates a bit, but I think the main thing here is for the government to get on with like you said, a more coherent plan for growth that gives people a bit of confidence in the future.
Just finally, I want to ask you about one of the other things that was sort of brought up. I think the best way to describe it is one of the letters that was circulating on Monday following the announcement that there was going to be this vote of no confidence, and it mentioned the policy on Rwanda. Well, we're hearing today that human rights lawyers are set to ground that first flight, which was due to take off next week. How much of a blow will that be for the Prime Minister and indeed his Home Secretary?
I don't think it's a blow at all. I think it's exactly the fight that he wanted to have, actually, about this, and almost certainly expected to have, because it puts him on the side of what is a popular policy, whether some people in the media don't like it that much, but out there in the public, and certainly among Conservative MPs, it's a popular policy. And he can say, we're trying to fight the good fight against the lovey-dovey human rights lawyers. And I don't think he'll mind these headlines one bit.
OK. John Ashmore, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.